I used to procrastinate on absolutely everything. I actually got pretty good at it. Here's the psychology hacks I use to completely get rid of it. First things first, identify what tasks you have to do and make yourself a to-do list. Get it out of your head and onto a piece of paper. By just getting the tasks down on a to-do list in front of you as opposed to in your head, you'll actually start thinking about how you want to approach each of these tasks, and that can actually help you get your butt out of bed and actually get started. When you make your to-do list, it's important to have an idea in your head of what tasks are the worst, are going to be the most time-consuming, the ones you hate the most, and the ones you think will be chill. Ones will take 5 minutes, the ones you actually kind of like doing. You can come up with ratings for these things if you want, like pick a scale like 1 to 10 and rate how bad or how good or how much you want to do this task versus how much you don't want to do this task, or how long this task will take versus how short this task will take. I almost never do that, and you certainly don't have to, but if it helps, go for it. Now, there are two main approaches that you could go about your to-do list. The one that works for me is the momentum method, where you start with an easiest task, one that's quick to do, and then it leads you into other tasks. For example, my dirty clothes might just be scattered across my room for like 4 days, and I really don't want to clean it up, but the day I actually decide to get up, it annoys me enough that I actually get up and do my laundry, I'll find myself going into other tasks that I didn't want to do either. Just doing a small task that you might not have wanted to do but doesn't take very long can actually build momentum. You feel productive. You get that dopamine hit. You get that neurochemical reward in your brain. Your brain likes making progress toward goals that you define and can carry you into another task. Now, the other way people go about their to-do list, which has been shown to be effective, probably guess, is by doing the worst or the hardest or the longest task first. This approach is sometimes known as the eat that frog approach, which is actually the title of a book. The idea is basically if you were told you had to eat a frog, that's something super like you wouldn't want to do that. The underlying idea is you'd want to eat the biggest, ugliest, least tasty frog first, and after you consume that, you can think to yourself, well, everything I have left could not be worse than what I just did. So if I can do this, then I can do those other things. Simply experiment with both, see what works best for you, but the one thing I will super warn you about is that you can get a dopamine hit just by planning doing tasks instead of actually doing the tasks. Meaning, if you spend a lot of time making a detailed plan for a task or a detailed structure of how you're going to do something, your brain will actually release dopamine and you'll feel the reward as if you completed that task just by thinking about doing it, about how you're going to do it. And for some people, depending on their situation, that's enough for them to feel accomplished for the day. And then they're like, oh, I did so much today. And then they don't actually get to the real things on their to-do list. So just be cautious. So you have your list and you know what order you're going to accomplish your tasks. The next step is setting up an environment. You would be surprised how influential and powerful your surrounding environment is on your brain, your cognition, how you feel. It is insanely influential. The point is you want to feel comfortable. Not too hot, not too cold, not hungry, not thirsty. Make sure you have snacks and water available. Make sure you're in a quiet place, or at least the type of environment that you're going to be doing the work. Make sure there's no distractions. Put your phone on D&D, set your phone down. If you need to, text somebody and say, hey, I'm locking in real quick, give me like an hour. Even better than that is if you're able to create an environment for yourself, or at least go to an environment like a library or an office or something where you are actually conditioned to do work. Using the library as an example, if every time you go to the library, you sit down and you actually do work, you focus and you work hard at the library, well, over time, you'll actually start to build an association with being at the library and doing work and focusing and working hard. But if you go to the library and sometimes you're working, but other times you're kind of checking your phone. I mean, we've all been there. It's like, I'm supposed to write this paper, but I don't really want to, so I'm on my phone, I'm scrolling Twitter, whatever it is. Over time, you'll build that habit and you'll start unconsciously associating the library with kind of just hanging out on your phone. So it's preferable if the environment you're working in, the environment you're getting your tasks done in, is something that you come to only when you're doing work. So you made your list and you have a good environment to actually do your work, but what do you actually do? First things first, while a lot of people on planet Earth like to think that they're really good multitaskers or that they can do a lot of things at once, the truth is multitasking in its most literal sense is impossible for human beings. We cannot do two things at once. We may be able to switch between two things very quickly. Maybe you think you can watch that lecture in the background while you're writing emails to someone, but the psychological truth is that you cannot do both things effectively at the same time. If you find yourself switching between tasks, research actually shows that you're going to progressively get worse at both tasks. You're going to do a pretty mid to bad job at both tasks, as opposed to just doing one really well, stopping, and then doing another really well. When you start doing your task, you don't have to complete it either, unless the deadline's tomorrow. And if the deadline is tomorrow, what are you still doing here? I don't know. You can start by actually just lying to yourself. Just set a timer on your phone for 5 minutes and literally tell yourself, I'm going to work on this for 5 minutes, and when this timer is done, I'm going to stop. 9 times out of 10, you will continue doing what you're doing for at least a few more minutes. And even if you don't, that is still 5 minutes of work put in that you would have not put in otherwise. Everyone has 5 minutes in their their day that they could spend working toward a goal or trying to get a little bit of progress toward a task. And it might seem silly to only do 5 minutes, especially of a large task, but spending that 5 minutes doing the task gives you a similar but a more powerful version of the effects that happen to you when you make that to-do list. Your brain starts thinking about, well, what would happen if we continue? What if we continued the paper this way? Or just spending the 5 minutes is great. And if you do get stuck on your task, especially if it's like reading or writing something, or just pop it into ChatGPT. I mean, we are closer to 2025 than we are to the start of 2024 at this point. And if we're not using ChatGPT, what are we doing? It's a literal cheat code to anything that has to do with writing or reading. To summarize, make a list. Make sure to identify the tasks that you hate or that you don't want to do, or the biggest task and the easiest tasks. Make sure you're going to work in the right environment, preferably an environment that you've done work in before and that you can stay focused in, and you will continue to stay focused in repeatedly over time within that same environment. And on those days that you just don't want to get started because the due date isn't close enough and the stress just hasn't hit you yet, set a timer for 5 minutes. Work for 5 minutes on your task. And if you get stuck, ask ChatGPT how to solve that problem. With all that said, isn't there something you're supposed to be doing right now? You know what it is. You don't want to do it, but you know what it is. Just do it. 5 minutes. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Just 5.